Hi, I'm James. I'm the General Manager at CFS.
In today's video, we're going to be talking about breaking the taboo, about talking about death and dying in the UK. So what's your opinion on that at the moment, James?
I think us as a nation, we're quite a private nation, I suppose, and I think we are kind of fearful of losing a loved one. Yeah, is kind of, even for myself, it's kind of strange talking to family members, but it's unfortunately a fact that we are all going to face one day.
Okay, so then touched on it a bit there, but why do you think death is such a taboo subject in the UK, and how do you think would be the best way to maybe break down that stigma in your opinion?
I'm not sure why it's such a big taboo in the UK more than there's like a lot of countries. It's quite accepted, more talked about. I think educating children in this area might be a huge benefit, and I think it is actually something that is ongoing at the moment. I think that would be a key factor in teaching the children about death and the funeral profession as well, maybe.
So then we literally talked just before this, didn't we, about 3 different topics of why you think death and funerals is a bit of a taboo topic in the UK. So the first one is like the fear of mortality, the fear of dying. Then why do you think that is? Why do you think people find it difficult to confront their own like mortality and talking about that and bring up their fears and anxiety, should we say?
I think it's more fear in others instead of your own. I think, yeah, for all of us, the thought of losing a loved one is an awful thought. If we kind of had a discussion with friends and family about what's your thoughts, or just bringing it up in a random conversation maybe, but yeah, I think the more we talk about anything, the easier it is for us to deal with in the long term. I think I don't often talk personally with my family, and that's my mistake. I think the last thing I want to talk about sometimes is what I do when I go home, but I think it's something that we do need to take into consideration.
So then the second one, kind of leading on from what you just said there, the second kind of point would be the lack of conversation starters. So I imagine for everyone it's difficult to know how to start that conversation about death and dying, isn't it?
Yeah.
As there not many obvious conversation starters, should we say? So like, what do you think on that?
The one conversation starter that I've come across is the music that was played at the service someone attended, or the type of style of music. When I've sat with families where their loved ones taken out a plan without them discussing that in depth, but the family know there's a plan and that person's gone through quite detail of what they would like for their service, and the surprise and like how people turn around and families turn around and say, oh, that's something that we should consider, that's something we should talk about. So it can start from a number of areas, as far as discussing a prepaid plan or the music that was played at someone's service you attended. I don't suppose the word vibe, but the how the service went about, and the stories that were told that put smiles on people's faces. And
you mentioned this at the start when we were talking about this. So like the lack of education, so the people in the UK don't really know how to approach the topic of death and dying, and schools and unis don't really teach it, and it's not a topic that's commonly discussed in society as well. So what's your opinion on that? Do you think things need to be improved or changed, or what would you kind of do?
I think things are improving with educating youngsters about death. I think it's kind of something that needs to grow, and it probably will grow over time. And I think it's something that us in the profession, something we can help with as well. Is that with my children, they ask me questions or ask me if what I've done today. They're quite interested, because there was a while where I didn't really go and tell them what I did because of their age, I suppose. So that's one thing to consider, because you don't want to put the fear in children either, which could obviously compromise everything that you're trying to build, really. But yeah, there's something that's definitely worth making more known to youngsters.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think the benefits are then about talking openly about death, dying and funerals for individuals or in society as a whole?
I think you definitely build up a bit more resilience, I suppose, because it is inevitable is going to happen to every one of us. I think people need to know the workings of how we go about our day-to-day work. Every funeral director should have an open door policy to a degree of whether a family want to come in and see your funeral home before they entrust you looking after their loved one. The councils, i.e. the crematoriums, allow that, so if families want to go behind the scenes and see how things work there, they allow that as well. It is different. Over time, it becomes a bit more comfortable to talk about. It's like when you're starting off in this profession, it's surreal, but obviously you kind of adapt to things over time. I think as well as talking to other family members maybe that have gone through a bereavement, a loss of a loved one, and even talking with them. So if you didn't want to speak to a funeral director or someone in the funeral profession, speak to loved ones, ask them the questions, and that might help.
I think it's like anything, isn't it? The first time you do something is always the hardest, isn't it? And then if you do it more and more times, it gets easier over time.
You learn to deal with it. I don't suppose you ever get used to it, because every day is different with us. You meet different people in different circumstances as well. But yeah, it does get easier in a way. But yeah, it's like you said, like everything else.
Just on a personal thing, I know for me, I don't have any family. Well, I've got mum and dad, but I don't have any like grandparents. I know the first people I'm going to lose is going to be mum and dad, which is going to be hard. But we kind of talk about it now and again. Like they like joke about it and stuff, which is like all right. About them dying, not like them being the only people. But I think it is important, isn't it, to just, even if you're not being super serious, to just be able to just bring it up. Yeah. Just because, like you say, it is inevitable, isn't it, down the line. But yeah, it doesn't make it any easier.
But like you said, joking, that we've experienced that, where that piece of music we heard, oh, I'll have that.
Yeah.
But sometimes that's actually, I do want to request that. That could be their way of actually telling you in a lighter manner. I know, it's difficult.
Yeah, it's weird.
It is difficult. I think sometimes even writing it down and just putting it away and putting it with the important paperwork or your requests. Like my grandfather, when he passed away, he always loved Louis Armstrong when the Saints Go Marching In. So my mum was going through his paperwork, it was before the funeral, and this leaflet fell out, Louis Armstrong, with the Saints Go Marching In. It was like, is that a sign, or actually he put that in a certain place? I don't know, yeah.
That's a great example, I think. What would your tips be then for initiating conversations about death, dying, funerals with loved ones then? Or in like a wider community? Anything you'd give as advice?
It's like have an off-the-record discussion with someone you can entrust. Or, as I said, make a note of requests or things. And even with plans, so you've got the prepaid plans, which people have taken out, and you can put a request on there. If you don't want to take a prepaid plan out, families have written us a letter. They say we don't want any plan or any payments, but we want you to have our request, and which we will keep on file as well. So we've got quite a few persons that have done that. So for example, they haven't mentioned anything to them, they want us to obviously hold on to information, and we can look after that for them as well.